Hey everybody, welcome to another segment of Tony's show. Today it's going to be a bit of a short one. I just got caught up and preoccupied in a lot of different things, so I had some things and some thoughts, and I was watching something, and kind of alarmed me. I'm going to start off with something I saw with sci-fi. Now I'm gonna be provocative here, extremely provocative, and I want you to think. I want you to really, really think here, because this is all about deception. Games, the torture going on is a deceptive game to get the general masses to accept that the officials are doing something for their benefit. Excuse me. But in reality, they are doing the contrary. They're putting muzzles on people. Imagine that, putting a muzzle on a person. I would imagine, women have fought so hard to have the ability to speak and have freedom of speech that they would not want to wear a muzzle. But hey, I could be wrong here. It's because I see a lot of women that do wear these things. And I think to myself, why are you wearing these things? Obviously, nobody reads the content of the boxes of these masks or these condoms or anything else that they got. These hand condoms, because that's what they are. They're hand condoms. And the interesting thing about those hand condoms, I was listening to a bunch of other doctors talking about them today. Every time you go somewhere and you go to a different store, you're supposed to, every time you go into a different store, change the mask and the gloves. Did you know that? Because you could transfer if, let's say, you go into a dollar store, and then you go into a grocery store. Then you go into a box store, and you're wearing the same gloves. You could literally, technically, because I don't think you're going to be spreading anything but bullshit, is what I think, because this whole thing is bullshit. But you could actually be spreading stuff around. So economically, this doesn't make sense to have to wear gloves every time you go somewhere. And you have to, okay, I went into Dollarama today, or Dollar Tree, or some dollar store. Then I decided to go into Costco. So now when I'm going to Costco, I got to take those gloves, throw them away, take the mask off, throw it away, and then put a new mask on and a new set of gloves. And all these frilly masks that they're selling, the fashion statement that they're trying to get everybody to, again, be seduced to it. The seduction game is unbelievable. Unbelievable. We're going to seduce you, reduce you, and then juice you. That's what they're doing. This is all torture. All of it. The concept that they're saying and what they're doing is nothing but pure torture. The means and the ways that they're doing these things, they are perpetuating. They're perpetuating the impact of wanting to produce an infection. Because you're wearing these masks, you're staying home, you're not outside, you got all kinds of other health issues that may now manifest and transfer as a result of not doing anything or being exposed. As a result, now you are FUBARred. And then you decide to follow the mandate that they tell you. And these political bastards, because they are, it's all, they're sons of Belial, they're bastards, that's all they are. Children of the devil, bastards. They are perpetuating the misery and the torture on the general population, putting on everybody, and then they're bringing in these Yahoo people from the WHO that have they're not quantified, they're not qualified, they're not even certified to do anything or say anything. These are some of the most butt-dumb people you'll ever meet. And then, when you get real hardcore doctors that are studying genetics and other things, and virologies and bacteriologies and all these other different things, that are well renowned in the planet. They don't work for the WHO because they know the WHO's a joke. The WHO is a joke. Joke. These guys that are running the WHO are nothing but corrupt to the core gangsters. That's all they are. And they're holding the planet as hostage. All bullshit. You know why? You want to know why you couldn't go to church in the United States and Canada? You know why you couldn't go? I thought about this long and hard today, and I kept thinking to myself, why couldn't people go to church? And talk to God. Because God was on quarantine. You see, he had to be on quarantine for 14 days or longer, because obviously he would spread COVID. Told that to my mother. She started laughing. This is why you couldn't go to church and talk to God, because because God had COVID and he had to be quarantined. And she started laughing. She says, you better cut that crap out. And I thought that was a revelation. An epiphany moment. This is how ridiculous this is. How come other countries are allowing their people to go to church, like Africa? Oh, wait a minute. Africans. Wow. Colored people. Go to church. Don't wear a mask. Are healthy. Third world country. America, Canada. Supposed to be first world country. Joke. Joke. Poor as hell. Impoverished. Other countries are far more wealthy than we are. And smarter, obviously. They are allowing their people to go to church. Allowing people to have their day with God. Now, this is what I don't understand. None of this, nobody looks around them and sees anybody dropping dead. How many of you live in Canada? How many live in America? How many live in America? How many live in Canada? And you go to the Costco's, and you go to the Walmarts, and you go to the Targets, and you go to the grocery chains, the big box grocery stores, you go to the dollar stores, you go to the Mickey Mouse stores, you go to the donut shops like the Tim Hortons, you go to whatever. How many of you have gone to all these different places and has seen anybody drop like they did in China? Has anybody seen this? I haven't. And you know what they'll say? Well, because we took preventative measures to keep everybody from being protected. They've been trying their asses off to make sure everybody's infected and can spread other pathologies because of the stupidity that they're enacting. Wearing rubbers, wearing a hand condom, and going to every store and touching everything from store to store. Oh, putting on a muzzle. And then now we got these muzzles that are made out of paper. They're 4-line. We got these 4-line muzzles, okay, that have all kinds of chemicals. They added more chemicals with the new liner. So now you're breathing, formaldehyde, and you're breathing cyanide, and you're breathing in slimicide, and you're breathing in butane, and you're breathing in ethylene, and the nitrogen. See, everyone's thinking about the carbon. The carbon will stop you from. Carbon is doing jack diddly. It's the nitrogen that's the real problem, causing the gases in the mass release. But you know what? Nobody pays attention. Then there was this thing I saw last night. It's posted. It'll be posted in the pod. Nurse worked in Elmhurst Hospital in New York City. Now, I watched this thing, and I sent it out to a bunch of my friends, and they started seeing how this was basically bullshit. A lot of it was bullshit. And it was, again, part of it, there was enough truth in there to make you wonder, but there was a lot of disinformation in there too. So, she kept asking the question, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Seriously, why? The question is pretty, this was a game. This was to get the audience caught up into the drama. And then she made a comment that these people had COVID. And this is the interesting thing about this, she was saying that they had a test for 45 minutes and they weren't using the test, so there's no effing way she could know they had COVID. They had biofilm in the lungs. This is what they had. And she even admitted that the biofilm and the respiratory issues could have been as a result of them being stressed and panicked and creating respiratory issues. But she did make a comment, and she did hit on the truth on certain aspects of it by saying that The ventilators were killing people. COVID didn't kill nobody. COVID did not kill nobody. The treatments is what killed everybody. And the doctors that were in this hospital weren't even fully staffed doctors. These were interns. Brand new kids on the block that didn't know their ass from a hole in the ground. Literally. They didn't know nothing. And you could hear them by just the way they were talking. They were like out of their league. So she was making all kinds of comments and made you wonder. And see, when they do stuff like this, it makes you wonder how legitimate was the presentation. But she did speak about how people would go in, were tested 3 or 4 times, didn't have COVID, then they put them on the ventilator and they were dead in 20 minutes. That, to give you an idea what that's like, it's like scuba diving. See, in scuba diving, you always have to breathe oxygen in and out. You never hold your breath at a lower atmosphere, because if you come up to a higher atmosphere and you held your breath, you could actually puncture a lung and or create an embolism in the bronchi, or even crack the bronchial tubes. And basically you could, drown in your own blood. So, because of the pressurization that goes on when you go from one atmosphere to the other. Well, it's the same kind of thing. If you got a blockage in the respiratory tract and then you're trying to force air with high pressure, something is going to give. And usually it's the person who is being initiated with this. She said one person survived out of I don't know how many. And the reason why he survived, because he got up and pulled the damn hose out of his mouth and said, "Chuck, you Farley, I'm out of here." Okay, and so he left. And they figured out that the medications that they gave him, because she said they were giving him 9 different medications that would literally put anybody in a coma, but because this guy was a drug user, the drugs did not have the impact on him that they would have had in a normal person. And she was explaining as well how every time a nurse has to go into a different room, they have to change their gear. They have to take the mask off, they have to take the hat off, they have to take the booties off, they have to take whatever covering they're wearing off, put it in a garbage can, and get a whole brand new set of whatever before they can go into the next room, because you could carry, this is why we're having the problems in the hospital today. The number one place to die is a hospital, because you got all these pathogens that are being transferred from one room to the next, because the medical field does not have the money today to sustain and support the costs for these nurses and doctors to be able to have the gear to be able to change into. Going to a hospital today is like going into a gas chamber waiting to be gassed, because that's essentially what they're doing. They're putting ventilators on, pumping you with all kinds of whatever, and you're dead. And she made a comment too. She says, when you're under these drugs and they traumatize the body, you die. You may not feel it in the unconscious state you're in, but you die. The trauma affects the central nervous system and the genetic code in the DNA, and it can have high levels of problems that can occur. This is what is going on today in North America, and probably Europe as well. This is a form of torture. Torture. Okay, they are torturing everybody. See, this is how this works. This is how the torture works. For the morons and the idiots who are following this completely, they're already going into the black hole. The problem with that is those of us who see what's going on and refuse to accept the status quo that they're propagating now are being drugged by the rest of these idiots, because there's more of them than us. Now, this is where severing ties will come in handy up the way, because eventually when they jump off the cliff, if you're attached to anybody in any way, shape, or form, you'll be jumping with them. That's how it rolls. That's how it rolls. We are in a state of war. We are in a state of war. And if they've been able to create the deception, when our Prime Minister in Canada gets up and does a speech on television, I don't believe jack shit that he's saying. Nothing. Zero, nada, nothing. He should win an Oscar for supporting actor. And all the parliamentarians and all the congressmen, all the people in the House, down in the States, Mr. Trump, all of them should win an Oscar for their deceptive acting roles that they're playing. See, the onus is going to be on everybody to pay attention and not just follow the things. I sent the video to a buddy of mine in Spain, and he was the one that actually caught. I caught something else, and I wasn't really paying attention to what he saw. But when he mentioned that she made the comment about COVID, and there's no test for COVID, not really. The biomarkers that they can test with these new tests, again, there's nothing to validate it, because again, it hits a certain lymphocyte that if it hits that lymphocyte, there's no way of testing it. There's no way of even knowing it is there. No way. There's no way. So everyone says, well, what are these people dying from? I'm telling you what they're dying from. They are dying from the medical industry. They're dying from the pharmaceutical industry. Mr. Silly Billy and Mr. Sorry Ass Soros have paid the industry to hijack and jeopardize all of us. See, I talked to a friend of mine now, and what they're doing, I think it's in Canada, that they're now going to have AI networks set up, and with the children, and the AI is going to filter out those kids that can't stay caught up with AI programming, and the rest it's going to assimilate. Imagine that. Imagine that. Your kids are the prize. Don't be an idiot. Don't be a fool. Your kids are the prize, because they are the future for the New World Order to stay in power, because these kids, when they get them, they will indoctrinate them very heavily. They'll be part of the programming, and when they're done with them, they won't know if they're punched, reamed, or bored. They won't have a clue. Let me give you some other thing, a provocative thing to think about. Let's talk genetics for a minute, shall we? Genetics, DNA, RNA, nanobiotechnology, quantum computing. I'm going to talk about Jesus, but I'm going to talk about Jesus in a different way. Not religiously, science. We're talking about science. Now, we know that there's this cloth that supposedly Jesus was wiped with when he died, and how they wrapped him up. Now, remember the Bible says that in the last days even the elect might be deceived. Well, what if we took the DNA off of that cloth, mixed it with a quantum network, a nanobiotech, and cloned that DNA? Now we have a programmable Jesus. We have a programmable, integrated nano quantum AI technology integrated with biology. So now what happens when, now again, this is getting you to think. So I saw something tonight and I thought, jumping Geronimo, this would be the thing to do to hit everybody's faith, belief, ideology, or philosophy. Let's say you're Muslim, and there's something that has Muhammad's DNA. What if they took Muhammad's DNA and integrated it with quantum computing, nanobiotech, and DNA replication, and created a clone? What would be the implications there? Wow. What if you took Moses? Well, you ain't going to be able to get Moses because in the Old Testament, the Bible says that God buried Moses. Nobody knows where Moses is buried. But what if, now this is a what if, okay? I just got done saying that nobody knows where Moses has been buried. But what if you could find something that Moses had that had his DNA? His loincloth, his robes, his staff, sandals, something. And you did the same thing. You took the DNA, incorporated it with a quantum AI network, and integrated it with a nanobiotech system to create a clone. What would happen? Now you have a programmable Moses. You have now a programmable Muhammad. You have now a programmable Jesus. What would happen? Who would control? And where would that take everybody? Think about that, eh? I'm throwing that out there because I saw some sci-fi tonight, and it's exactly what they did. They replicated some DNA from supposedly a prophet of this culture. And when I watched, I said, son of a gun. That's what they would do. They would do this. Imagine that. Imagine that. So, in order for you to understand where we're at today, recognize this. Recognize this. Majority of the doctors today do not understand nanobiotech infections. They don't understand it at all. Zero. In fact, majority of the people that go see doctors today, the first thing they diagnose them as either some sort of autoimmune disorder or Lyme disease, because they don't know what a mimetic is. They have no idea what mimetics can do or how mimetics can actually look and reflect and represent the real McCoy. So, if they don't know what they're looking for, then what are they treating? See, it's the same thing with the COVID. When you listen to that movie tonight, that video, you're going to hear her have a conversation with the doctors and say, well, they're going to die anyway. And a lot of times the doctors were wrong. If they had treated them and got on top of the treatment right away, they would have saved people. So, we are living in a world of dastardly deceptions. Dastardly deceptions. And prophets may pop up. If they do, you better test to make sure they are the real McCoy. That they do belong to the living God, not the God called AI. Not the machine God that men or demonics have built. Okay? It's an idol. AI is nothing more than an idol. A program operating system designed to upgrade itself, improve itself, and use whatever means or methods it can to acquire new information so that it can be as adequate as it can be in order to integrate with the species. Imagine that. And imagine that takes over. Creates that prophet, that priest, that called messenger. Imagine that. Imagine that. See, some of you may get scared of what I'm saying. Some of you get all offensive with what I'm saying. All I'm saying is, get your ass in gear and stay there. Because they are going to pull something like this. This is coming. They've been warning us through the sci-fi networks that this is coming. Okay? And I think we're on the precipice of this happening. And as long as they got everybody in the state of terror, because they're being terrorized, nobody's thinking. And as long as they can keep sustaining the terror and keep people off balance so that they focus on what they're trying to destabilize, then nobody is going to pay attention or see the see the game for what it's worth because you're too busy being distracted looking at the left when you should be looking at the right, or you should be looking up instead you're looking down. And if they got you fixated on a focal point on the television or on the radio or Facebook or YouTube or whatever, as long as you're stuck in that focal point, you're getting programmed. You're being sucked in. And like I said, when I look at things today, and I'm looking at it from a historical perspective, my personal history, how I grew up and what I watched and what had influenced and affected me. And when I watch these things again as a rerun or whatever, I begin to realize that, you know what, this thing was just, they had us and we didn't even know they had us. And the same is the same today. They got everybody, by their credentials. They got everybody, and I mean everybody. So it's the deprogramming that we all go through. It's the releasing and letting go of the programs that we have been indoctrinated with, integrated with. And once you start letting those programs go, and you'll know if it's the right one or the wrong one, because if you let it go and it continues getting worse and worse and worse, and it was the wrong program that you let go. And what I mean by program, there are some things that you get in life that are upbuilding, strengthening, and fortifying. And there are some things you get in life that you assume that was these things, but it really, all it did was drain and bleed out and take from you. So once you understand that, and once you understand that concept, okay, then you have the option of being able to stop it. It's that easy, But you gotta know. So I'm presenting that false prophet or that genetically engineered prophet, holy man, son of God, God in the flesh, prophets from the Middle East, prophets from the Far East, prophets from North America. All of a sudden, they appear through a holographic imagery, speaking in whatever format that they'll speak. To those who are Islamic, they'll speak from the Quran. For those who are Christians or biblically orientated, they'll speak from the Bible. From those who are native and believe in the Creator, they will speak through symbolisms. Those of you who are Hebrew and will hear the message as well, they'll speak through the Torah. That's how it works. See, if you're trying to talk to a Christian about anything and it's remotely not right, you're going to have a hard time with them because the standard that they're using is the biblical one. Now, if you're speaking biblical truths with somebody who believes, you are going to be able to communicate. You may not agree. There's a lot of people that don't agree with my stand on certain things, and there's people I don't agree on their stand on certain things either, but we get along. We both know that in the end, the truth will manifest. Until we get there, it's basically whatever you can find based on whatever you think. We're in a realm today, not a good one. And those who are in charge are pathetic. They're not doing us any good. And I think we all really need to realize that maybe we should just say no. We have had enough. The answer is no. We're not going to play no more. I'm taking my marbles and I'm going home. Perhaps that's what we should be saying. See, we're seeing a lot of deceptions already in a lot of things, especially in science. I mean, the biggest deception, obviously, that we're seeing is the COVID, right? It's just nonsense. Total farcical. But, as well, think about this as well. For the last 60 years, they have not cured anything. Now, you mean to tell me that we can go into developing genetic engineering, DNA DNA bio nanotechnology, we can build quantum computers that can do phenomenal work in figuring things out, and yet we can't cure anything. I mean, am I the only one that sees this hypocrisy here? That we can now have a computer that can program itself, have a computer that can run the whole planet, have a computer that can figure out computations that would take a normal computer 10,000 years that can be done in moments. Why aren't these things being cured? Who stands to make the most money on those gloves, those hand condoms that everybody's wearing? Who stands to make the most money? I can see Trojan now. Trojan sells condoms, in the drugstore. I can see Trojan now, crying foul because the competition is unfair and they're losing money because they only got one condom. Now you have 5. You got a handful with the other one. Imagine that. Oh, look. I can take turns. I can use this one, use this one, use this one, use this one, and I won't get COVID. It's silly. And what I just said is ridiculous. But it's no more ridiculous than what I've just been saying. A, there's no test for COVID. B, the masks are toxic as hell. And this is what they've done. They have diverted everybody to jump over a certain fence a certain way. Now we got this boogeyman here. The boogeyman. COVID. Ooh, he's coming for you. So now you're running because you're not thinking, you're not researching, you're not doing anything except listening to television, which we all know is a programming device designed to brainwash you and to put you under control. So now you watch the television. So now they go, for the safety and blah, blah, blah. You got to be social distancing. We're going to draw a circle so your kids will sit in the circle. And, you can't, blah, don't be close to people. Oh, you're going to spread. Oh, if you sneeze, you're going to, blah, and you're going to die. And they're going to die. And everybody's going to die. Oh, jeez. And you fall for that. You fall for that. And then you get officials who bring in other officials who have absolutely no credentials, no credibility at all in what they're talking about. An intern probably from some hospital in Canada, probably Vancouver or Calgary or something like that. Imagine that, eh? And giving advice to a prime minister who is not quantified or qualified to do anything medically whatsoever. Zero. And here they're listening to an idiot who doesn't know how to tie their shoe with Velcro. See, there's a problem with that. But again, that requires observation. There's a problem when the nurse is telling me that there's dangerous activity going on into the hospital, and she's part of that entourage that's there to try to do something, and they return they're taking away any option or opportunity for her in order to correct whatever problems are needed. She was saying that she had gotten somebody stabilized. They got her out of the room because she wouldn't follow their procedure, because she would have had to put a signature on something, so they got her out of the room. She was not gone, not even 20 minutes, and the guy was dead. Dead. What is that saying about the hospital? Now, if you're 80 years old, and you don't have a doctor that is who has some viability and integrity with you, then perhaps you shouldn't go to a hospital. If you gotta die, okay, let's say you're 84, 85, 90 years old, whatever, and you have to die. And you know, if you go to the hospital, they're going to kill you anyway because they want you dead and removed anyhow. Then you may as well stay home. Die in peace. Die with your family. You know, just find some respite there to go in peace. Get right with your maker and bow out. But don't go to a hospital or medical institution that has all the toys, bells, and whistles, but they won't use it because of the cost. What she was saying was incredible on some things. Some things I was like, okay, where did that come from? But we have to recognize that there's a lot of people in the hospital, in the medical field as well, that are trying, but the majority don't give a shit about you. They don't care. They make the hospital money. They get a raise. They move up in status. That's what it's all about. Okay, that's what they're doing. So, like I said, don't be alarmed at some of the things that are happening today, because this has been going on for quite some time. The only difference is now it's just a lot more flagrant. It's a lot more out there, because so when we're looking at some of the things that are happening, well, I mean, I've had it here in Windsor where I had a family from Toronto contact me, took their father in, and they asked him if he wanted a box for his dad. He says, I don't want a box for my dad. I want my dad good so I can take him home. They killed him. Not even a day, they killed him in Toronto. They euthanized him. See, I think that's bullshit. Total bullshit. I think if you want to go and you tell the doctor, I'd like for you to take me out, that's one thing. Now, whether you believe it's spiritual or viably spiritual or not, that's not the point I'm trying to get here. So don't start busting my chops on, well, you shouldn't say that. I'm saying that doctors should not have the choice or have the ability to avoid any kind of repercussion for doing this act. But if there is a compliability and it's witnessed by other family members, then that's a little different. That person made the choice. So, and again, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it. I'm just saying this is how we're at today. They are killing you in those hospitals. They're killing you in the clinics. They're killing you everywhere. They created a racial thing. And I was watching something the other day. The House Representative Pelosi and a bunch of other people were kneeling down, wearing their muzzle. And I looked at that and I thought, they're mocking the whole thing. This whole thing is a mockery that they were doing. They're mocking what happened. They're mocking what went on with that man. And now again, whether or not you believe he's dead or not, that's not the point. The point is they're doing this kneeling down, and guess what? They weren't social distancing either. Prime Minister wasn't social distancing, and so they can't say a damn thing about it. You know, Trump is the only one of the few in the political arena right now that isn't wearing a mask. Why? Think about this. He is not wearing a mask. I haven't seen him drop dead yet. He hasn't gone anywhere where he's been affected by the corona. Yeah. So, what is that saying about the rest of the political leaders? They're full of shit. Trump should have been dead. All the handshaking and people he goes around and places he visits, especially when he's doing some campaigning, he should be dead. He doesn't wear the hand condoms either. Doesn't wear the muzzle. Imagine that. And Americans should be paying attention to that. Americans should be paying attention to that. If the President of the United States of America is not wearing a mask and gloves, what is that saying to the rest of the general population? That whatever is going on is pure bullshit. Because the President of the United States would be the first one that would have an entourage of medical people all around him 24/7. And if they would have told him to wear an oxygen mask, he would have wore it. Imagine that. So start paying attention to some of the things on tonight's show, especially when you start hearing about gods, G-O-D-S, or gods manifesting somewhere, someplace, somewhere. It may not be a god or gods. What it may be is a genetically engineered specimen that they took from wherever and now have replicated it. Okay? Pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention. Like I said, we're no longer living in the world of simplicity, and we're no longer living in a world where it's going to get easier or better. This is about to go, into the shitter. It's going to go right into the shithole. And we're already in the toilet. This is going to go even deeper and worse. And you start preparing. I've been saying forever. Start stockpiling food. Start stockpiling dry eggs. Start stockpiling dry milk, dry gelatin. Protein powders. Start having these around. Start stockpiling canned coconut or jarred coconut. Mix it with a little BHT when it softens up, so that the BHT will keep it preserved for a longer period of time. Start thinking. Grow greenhouses, indoor gardens. Start doing that. We don't know how much time we're going to have. They're speeding up the clock. The next one I think is going to be hunger. The Hunger Games are coming. Welcome to Canada, eh? Welcome to the Hunger Games, where we will starve our own people and we'll make up some bullshit lie just so that they can't access food and stay healthy. Welcome to Canada. I get emails sometime, and some people tell me that I have an attitude about Canada or whatever we're talking about, and I quite frankly I write back and says I don't have an attitude. I'm just telling it the way it is. I've been there, done that kind of thing. So, what we all need to recognize, okay, cooler heads will prevail, number one. And number two, people who are more apt to use their brain will, again, circumvent a lot of problems. Three, if you can find people that are like-minded and talk the talk and walk the walk, and they're not, hidden spies for the government, make connections. It's going to be imperative that you understand that what's coming down is going to be a full body contact sport in regarding to getting things set up off grid or building whatever you have to build in order to survive. The rest, if you haven't been following the themes, start reading what's on the internet and start getting ready. Because if you don't, all that'll be left is a black spot where you're sitting. And that's how it rolls. Alrighty, on the site you're going to see people that are active, on fire, believing in God, the living God, not some bullshit God or some bullshit machine they're calling God, the real God. And you got other people there like Brian and Yanni and others that are, doing the best they can to inform everybody and to build whatever needs to be built so that everybody has it. Anyway, check out the pod tonight, the podcast. And if you see anybody there that you want to support. If not, share their information, share everything that you can with other people, because again, it's going to come to a point where, they may even, because you're not complying the way they want you to, they may even take it out on you, and you may have to deal with things of a violent nature, and that's to be expected. That's to be expected. So, be prepared. Be prepared. All right. Till the next segment, to your health. And remember this. We are still here. We are still here. And if you're still feeling a little bit, uncomfortable, jaded, salted, Again, check out the BitChute channel. There's stuff that might help you mitigate the frequencies coming at you. And I always just tell everybody too, to find any kind of hope or encouragement, you may want to read the Gospels, read the New Testament Gospels and read what Jesus had to say. All right, until the next segment, to your health. Take care.